Alrighty, SGS League. Welcome to the Fantasy Fanatic Podcast. I'm your host, Jordan, and I'm back today with another video. Today, we are going to be going through the Week 2 recap, and then we'll go through Week 3 matchups before this Thursday night game. Been very busy, so it's been hard for me to make videos the past few days. But today, I'm going to make the video for the SGS league, and then tomorrow I'll make another video if y'all are interested in watching it for everyone else for my predictions on what players to start going into week 3 of the fantasy football season. So far it's been a really good first couple weeks, but honestly been very stressful too because of the amount of injuries that we've had. Injuries have really been plaguing fantasy football to start this year. It's actually crazy. I do not ever recall there being this many injuries in some of the top players already. But we all just got to fight through it, man. It's going to be pretty tough. First off, I want to go through the Week 2 recap just because I was a little late on doing it. But we'll go through these pretty quick. First off, we got Easton versus Jack. Easton with a strong bounce-back performance. His team went off this week. Jalen Hurts had a huge game against Atlanta. Bijan had a great game. Zach Charbonnet had a great game. Charbonnet being the lead back there, he will produce very well and could be a top 12 running back every week. So I highly recommend keeping him started as long as Kenneth Walker is out. But once Kenneth Walker comes back in, Charbonnet's value definitely dips, but he's a great handcuff back to have. Very good pickup for Easton, and it's really showed up so far. Nico Collins is looking really good this year. He's leading the NFL in receiving yards after week 2. He is definitely number 1 by far, as we predicted for Houston. He has shown that he is the top dog here, and he continues to put up back-to-back great performances of fantasy. Rashee Rice, definitely the number 1 option for Kansas City. Got his first touchdown of the year this past Sunday in a very close game against Cincinnati. Rashee Rice is going to continue to get a lot of the targets. He's going to continue to be Mahomes' favorite target going forward, I believe, with the Kelsey usage kind of going down, with the Hollywood Brown injury, and with Xavier Worthy just kind of being that boom or bust type of guy going forward. Goddard is really the only person I would be worried about having on your team, but I mean, it's not that big of a worry. It's your tight end. As long as your wide receivers and running backs are playing good, you ain't got nothing to worry about. Goddard's been very concerning to start the year. They've been throwing Calcaterra in a lot too, 2 tight end sets. Very interesting to see how they've played their offense so far this year. And then obviously you have one of the top defenses right now in the Steelers defense. They have looked dominant to start the first 2 games of the season. They're position 4. Now they have a little bit of a tougher test going to play the Chargers this week. I believe it is the Chargers, right? Should be. Yeah, so playing the Chargers this week. Definitely a better offense than Denver for sure. But the Steelers' defense looks legit, so that's a huge defense to have on your team. And then we look at the side for Jack. Jack's team, I mean, hey, you can't be mad with how your team played this week, especially with unfortunately Christian McCaffrey being on IR, which is a huge loss for you. But I mean, you can't be mad about how your team played. I mean, obviously you have Kamara, and Kamara had a huge week, biggest week of fantasy that we've had, I think, so far this year, with the 4 touchdowns. Baker Mayfield continues to produce with Tampa Bay. He's looking really good. But obviously Zeke did not play well. The wide receivers really took a dip this week for you. Mike Evans didn't perform that well. Tank Dell had only, think, like -1 yard or something like that. Didn't really play well. Michael Wilson didn't do much. So a little bit concerning to see that from the wide receivers, but Mike Evans isn't going to be like this every week. He should have a big week going forward. And Tank Dell, I believe, will at some point have some breakout games. It's just kind of hard to share the targets, obviously, in Houston. And as I predicted, I had a feeling that Tank Dell was going to be one that would take a toll with Stephon Diggs being there now. But Nico's just the top alpha dog right now. And unfortunately, going up against him, I'd take Nico over Tank Dell all day currently. But you can't be too mad about your team, Jack. I mean, they still played very well. Just you took on an onslaught of some amazing play from some of Easton's guys this week. So Easton goes to 1-1. Tuck and Bird up next. So this was a pretty good matchup coming in. I was very excited to see how this went. And Tuck's team didn't really perform that well this week. Didn't really see a lot of production from Xavier Worthy like you saw last week. Kyle Pitts didn't really play as well either, which he had a pretty good week last week too. Najee Harris didn't really play well. Just not a lot of offense going on with Pittsburgh, and it's going to continue being that way, especially if Jaylen Warren starts to have a bigger role in this offense. That's definitely going to affect Najee Harris' production, so just keep that in mind. Running backs played fine, but now with no Isaiah Pacheco, that is a pretty big loss for Connor, and he's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks, so now you're going to probably have to throw Najee Harris on that running back spot, and then you're going to have to flex one of these wide receivers you have on your bench. Recommendations, man, I honestly don't know. All these guys are kind of – I'd probably go Lockett over any of these guys, or maybe Brandon Cooks for right now. But, yeah, that'll be interesting to see who you start. Mahomes didn't really have the best game either for his stature, so – but, I mean, it's not like it's just Mahomes. It's a lot of the QBs so far this year. The QB play has been down tremendously. Defenses are starting to get a lot better. They're scheming these offenses a lot better to be able to limit the amount of yardage that they are able to get on passing plays mostly. So you see the running game getting involved a lot more in the NFL this year, which is very interesting. Something I was not expecting whatsoever. But defenses are getting better, and so now offenses got to try to get back into their full form like we saw last year. Now with Hayden's team, Burt with another win, he goes to 2-0 on the season. He's got some really good solid players going forward. Jaden Daniels is looking like a really good QB for fantasy. Didn't really have the best week this week, but I think going forward, Jaden Daniels with that rushing upside, he's going to continue to produce. The only concern with Jaden Daniels obviously is, can he throw deep balls? We haven't really seen him throw much deep balls this season yet, but I think that will be to come whenever he builds more confidence and he knows the playbook a little bit better. Derrick Henry and Jahmyr Gibbs put up some pretty solid performances, what you would want from your running backs every week. Obviously, Gibbs didn't meet his projection. He got close, but I'm still very high on Gibbs. I think Gibbs is going to have a big season to end up finishing maybe like one of the top 5 running backs this year. And then Derrick Henry just doing his thing, man. Derrick Henry is just that bell cow. He'll always be getting those those goal line carries with Justice Hill being on the 2-minute drill on third down. So always just keep that in mind. He will not have any role offensively when it comes to pass catching, but he will be that running back bell cow that they'll have. Now, obviously, a big loss for Burt is Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp was going to be trending in the right direction. He had an absolute insane first week, and then coming into the second week, I was expecting him to have another insane week, but ankle injury, not on IR, but could be out for a couple weeks. He is in a cast, so that's a big loss for Burt's team. But the good thing about Burt's team is he's got wide receiver options, so he's got a lot of guys that he could choose from with Brian Thomas Pickens, Jaden Reed. Malik Neighbors looks like he is going to be a huge part of this Giants offense too. I mean, with the amount of usage he got this last week, it was actually insane to see that he had about 65% of the target share in this offense. So if that continues, I mean, Malik Neighbors is going to be a huge fantasy wide receiver this year. And then Brian Thomas is continuing to look like he's going to be number 1 in Jacksonville. Jacksonville's offense is not great to start the year whatsoever, but having an alpha dog like Brian Thomas coming in rookie season and already showing that, hey, I can be the top guy on this team, I'm the deep threat, is very fortunate to have this guy who unexpectedly is now looking like he's going to be number 1 on this team going forward. So very, very good to see for Burt's side. But yeah, that is a huge win for Burt. He is now 2-0, and Connor Tuck goes to 1-1 on the season. Next up, we got Jace and Seth. So big win for Jace this week after going 0-1 against Carson. Obviously didn't really get a lot of great QB play. Josh Allen didn't play well. Javonte Williams played okay. J.K. Dobbins continues to trend in the right direction. Another 100-yard performance Dude is looking like he might be the steal of the draft so far, as long as he stays healthy. Obviously, got to be concerned about his health, just because we know his past. But when he's healthy, he's producing, and right now he's looking like he's going to lead this Chargers running back room. With Gus Edwards still getting a bulk of the share of carries as well, but J.K. Dobbins is obviously the better running back here. You got to keep starting him with how he's been performing so far. And yes, Garrett Wilson's had a little bit of a slow start to the season, but I think Garrett Wilson will definitely thrive in this offense eventually. They will be, him and Aaron Rodgers will definitely get on page a little bit better going forward, and I think Garrett Wilson will have a bigger role getting into these next few weeks. And then obviously finally, don't want to say finally, it's only week 2, but I mean, hey, after week 1 we were a little concerned about Marvin Harrison Jr., but he comes back, bounces back with a huge week with 2 touchdowns. Man, this Arizona offense, like I projected, is looking like they are going to be a very deadly team. So don't want to overreact after week 2, but Arizona looks really good. So after beating up on the Rams, Mark Andrews, a little bit of optimism seeing that he got more fully involved this week and Isaiah Likely didn't get as involved. So that's really good to see that Mark Andrews is still looking like he's going to be the top guy on this tight end team. But obviously nothing too crazy performance-wise for him. And then McLaurin's looking like a concern right now just because, I mean, obviously McLaurin is that guy that you would expect to get 40, 50-yard catches from. You haven't seen that at all this year. He's getting a lot of short catches, just not really been that deep play guy that we were expecting him to be this year. But Jaden Daniels, I think overall, once we go fully into the season more, I think McLaurin will get better options on that. So, and then Seth's side of things, Seth, man, unfortunately, Seth is another guy that is dealing with some injuries. T. Higgins is out, so that didn't help. And then that's it. For some reason, I thought he had more injuries. I'm tripping. Joe Burrow didn't play bad, had a pretty decent week. Jonathan Taylor had a pretty good week. Brian Robinson had another pretty good week. Christian Watson with a donut is very surprising. But, I mean, we weren't really knowing what to expect from this offense with Malik Willis under center. So, Demarcus Robinson thought that he would have a little bit of a bigger role this week with, obviously, Cooper Kupp being out after the half. But it looks like Matthew Stafford is kind of spreading the targets around. And we'll see if Demarcus Robinson has a bigger week this week, because he should be the top guy on this offense going forward with no Cooper Kupp and no Puka. But we'll have to see what happens with that. Their offense is kind of beat up. And then Eckler had a pretty decent week too. Overall, I forgot about Puka too. You got T. Higgins and Puka out, which are some of your top draft picks this year. So that's very unfortunate that he's got those injuries plaguing his team right now. And then obviously Kelsey, I forgot to talk about him. A little bit of a concern with Kelsey, another dud week. It's looking like his role in this offense is starting to slim down. Now, don't want to overreact after 2 weeks. I think Kelsey will end up having some big games going forward, but for right now, it is looking like a little bit of a concern with Kelsey, just because he's really just not getting as much volume as we were expecting him to get. He's only got 4 catches for 39 yards on the season, 7 targets. So, Jace goes to 1-1. Seth is now 0-2. Next up, we got Bryce and Connie. Bryce's team did really well this week. Obviously, the big play from Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray had an amazing game, so you love seeing that from your QB1. Devon Achane with another huge game, and it's only going to be up for Devon Achane from here. His role is going to increase with no Tua, so he's going to be involved in this passing game a lot more, a lot of check downs, a lot of opportunities for Devon Achane. He's going to probably blow up in this offense. Aaron Jones, pretty much not the best week for him overall fantasy-wise. DJ Moore, Chicago's offense is struggling, so we really are not expecting big play from any of these guys until their offense starts clicking a little bit better. Calvin Ridley with a huge week. Calvin Ridley played very well. I believe he had 2 touchdowns. Definitely the top guy on this Titans team. He's playing really good. He had 2 TDs, so He's looking pretty good. He's definitely going to continue to produce with this team being the number one guy. And then obviously the A.J. Brown injury sucks. So no A.J. Brown for a couple weeks with his calf strain, I think is what it was. So that's going to suck, unfortunately, for him. But good thing about your team, too, is you got some wide receivers that have a lot of upside going forward with Jackson Smith-Njigba, Quentin Johnston looking like he could be the number one guy for the Chargers, but still it's up in the air. But 2-touchdown week for Quentin Johnston. You love to see that. And then a couple other guys like Wan'Dale Robinson that could have a good rest of fantasy season, and Justice Hill, who's getting a pretty big role in this Baltimore offense. So Connor's team didn't perform bad. I mean, they had a decent week. Just took on Kyler Murray and Devon Achane, and unfortunately, and Dak didn't really play well. Saquon had a pretty good game. So did Stevenson once again. Just the wide receivers, like Olave and Stephon Diggs, didn't really have the best performances overall. But it's good to see that Olave is getting a bigger role in this offense. We were expecting that. We didn't want to overreact after that first week. And then obviously with Stephon Diggs, he just wasn't really getting a lot of targets in that last game. And I mean, he just didn't really get a lot of yards either. So Brock Bowers is looking like he might be the tight end steal of the draft so far with how he's playing. He's leading tight ends in receiving yards to start the year, and he's looking like he might be one of the top. He's playing like he's a top 3 tight end this year so far, with all the tight end play being down this year so far as well. So Darnell Mooney with the big week too. You like to see that. He had that huge touchdown in that game. Darnell Mooney's definitely getting having some optimism going forward right now. But yeah, Bryce with the dub, he's now 1-1, and Connor is 1-1 as well. Next up, we got Andy and Carson. So this was another matchup I was really looking forward to this week, but now we got Carson dealing with a whole bunch of injuries, unfortunately, and also I know a trade just happened, so he has no more Mostert, he has no more Josh Palmer, and now he has Amari Cooper, so there's a wide receiver that you can maybe fit into your starting lineup next week. But yeah, just injuries really plaguing Carson's team so far. Kenneth Walker beat up, Deebo Samuel beat up, Tyreek Hill taking a dip just because of obviously the Tua injury. Very unfortunate start to the year for Carson's team, but luckily he's got some guys that he has on his bench that could have some upside going forward. Christian Kirk has been pretty much very surprising this year. Really has not been doing anything with this Jacksonville team, and it's getting to the point where it's like, do you cut this guy? He's like not even performing well to start the year. I mean, the dude only has 29 yards, 2 receptions on the season, 7 targets. So that's very concerning. Now we look at some of the optimism. Obviously, Lamar Jackson's going to continue to be a really good fantasy QB, so you got that going forward, and I do believe Kincaid is going to end up having a bigger season overall. So Kincaid will be more involved in this Buffalo offense for sure, but very beat-up running back core, very beat-up wide receiver core. It's very unfortunate what Carson's dealing with right now, and it sucks, man. God, I love fantasy. Andy's team, on the other hand, it's the complete opposite. Andy's team is looking absolutely amazing. He's got some dogs on his team. C.J. Stroud's playing good. Josh Jacobs and Jordan Mason had some really good games as well. What a pick, by the way. Picking up Jordan Mason and having him as a handcuff back. I mean, God, he is just performing very well in this San Francisco offense right now. And then obviously the wide receivers too. The wide receivers have been playing out of their minds. I mean, you got CD and Chris Godwin who are just 2 solid wide receivers to start every week. And then Trey McBride, a huge start every week for tight end as well. McBride is a beast. Jerome Ford is a little bit concerning. For some reason, Deontay Foreman's got a bigger role in this offense, and we saw it last week. Not really sure why after Jerome Ford had a really good week last week, but I'm not too sure. That's a very weird situation going on with Cleveland. Jerome Ford's a little concerning to start overall towards the future, but also, I mean, you got Rachaad White, which Rachaad White has not been consistent so far to start the year. He did have a good first game, but his second game was very, very concerning to see. If he doesn't get any targets or any if he doesn't get any pass catching in this offense, Rachaad White apparently is just not a good rusher of the ball. But like I said, he's got Bucky Irving in case anything happens. So I mean, he drafted very well this year with the handcuffs back so far. So, but yeah, really big week once again for Andy. Andy's team is looking like one of the top dogs in the league so far. So 2-0 for Andy, and Carson goes to 1-1. Next up is Kyle and Dylan. This was a really good matchup this week. Got pretty close. Very, very one of the more low-scoring matchups this week. I do want to say that Dylan's team looking pretty good. He had the Joe Mixon injury happen, which was very unfortunate. Anthony Richardson after that game looked very concerning, threw a lot of picks, did not look that great overall. So that's a little concerning to see. But I think Anthony Richardson will still be a good fantasy QB going forward. Zach Moss, not the best week for him, but I do believe he's still going to be the top guy on this offense. So continue to start him every week because I think he will get the usage. And then obviously the wide receivers played great this week. Amon-Ra with a huge game, bounced back too. I told y'all not to worry too much about him. And what do you know? He goes and puts up a pretty good performance. Devontae Adams with a huge performance as well. Evan Ingram got hurt, so that's very unfortunate for you, but he didn't have a good start to the season in general. And then Ladd McConkey didn't have the best game, but I think he's still going to have a couple pretty big games going forward, so I wouldn't be too worried about him. And then you got Jameson Williams on your bench, too, who's had a great start to the season. So, and then Kyle's team, Kyle having a few injuries as well, plaguing his team with Justin Jefferson getting hurt. But I think he will be good to go. Obviously couldn't start Jake Ferguson this week, but Jake Ferguson should be back this next upcoming week, so that'll be big for your team. Really, Zamir White being uninvolved in this offense whatsoever really sucks. And then obviously Keon Coleman putting up a donut. Very, very unfortunate, but I do still think Keon Coleman's a guy that I would believe in at some point. I think he will end up being the top guy on this offense at some point, so it's just a patience game with him. But, I mean, great play from James Conner and Justin Jefferson. But, obviously, and then, I mean, Travis Etienne played great, too. Just didn't get a lot of good QB play this week. And, obviously, the 2 injury plagued Waddle as well. He didn't play well either. And, I mean, going forward, Waddle's a little bit concerning with Skylar Thompson being the starter. But we'll kind of see how that looks after week 3. And then last matchup, this matchup was the closest of the week. Man, it came down to the wire. It literally came down to the final drive for the Falcons for me to win this. And I was very shocked. Sorry to give you the L chance. It was a very close game. I would have been very pissed off losing to a kicker. Very pissed off. So I'm very glad that Drake London came in clutch on that last touchdown play. That was a huge, huge thing for me. A little boost of confidence for my team going forward, hopefully. But very impressed. The whole week started off with James Cook for me that I was very happy about. He had a big week with 3 touchdowns. Everyone else on my team, nah. Everyone else is just not playing well other than Drake London had a good week. But it was just that final drive. And then very happy about seeing the Tony Pollard usage so far. And if Tajee Spears continues to be hurt and is out this week, Tony Pollard, I think, is projected to have a pretty big week, so I'm excited about that. But Jamar Chase being basically a little pansy right now, just basically whining about not getting paid. I mean, the dude is pissing me off. So hopefully Jamar Chase will stop acting like a child and will actually play some good fantasy football for me going forward. And then DeAndre Swift's been a dud so far. But the Chicago offense does not look great either. I think DeAndre Swift will end up having a bounce-back week. Hopefully, he's projected to, so we'll see what happens with that. And then, obviously, the biggest thing for me is Laporta not starting the year off very well. He's not getting a lot of usage. I mean, Goff passed it 55 times last game, and he only ended up getting, I think, 2 or 3 targets in that game, which is very concerning. I would expect Samuel Porter to have a better start to the season than this, but he hasn't. But I'm going to continue to believe in this guy. I still think he's going to be one of the top tight ends in the year. But it's been very interesting to see how the ball's been spread out in that offense to start off the year. So, and then Chance's team is solid. I mean, Breece Hall, David Montgomery had great weeks. Zay Flowers had a great week as well. Ayuk and Pittman only putting up a combined 9.9 definitely sucks, no doubt. But Ayuk will have a bigger role going forward with no Debo and Christian McCaffrey. So Ayuk is projected to probably have a big week going forward. Michael Pittman, if Anthony Richardson continues to throw the ball very inconsistently like this, Pittman is a little bit concerning, but I do think Pittman will still be that top alpha dog in this offense going forward. And then Brock Purdy, looking like he is going to need to prove himself and show that he should be paid some top QB money going forward with no McCaffrey and no Debo. He's going to have to show out and start feeding the ball to Ayuk, so we'll see how that goes. Yeah, what a week. This was the big matchup this week, man. I'm so happy that I got the dub. Both of us are now 1-1. So yeah, there's the week 2 recap. Let's go ahead and go into week 3 matchups. So we got some good matchups going on this week. We'll start off with Andy versus Chance. Right now, Andy's a big favorite. Just because, so right now looking like Chance is going to need to fill in his tight end spot. I don't really know if Njoku's going to be ready this week, so that'll be something to monitor. If not, then you're going to have to go pick up a tight end off waivers. But yeah, looking at this matchup right now, I definitely, just on paper, I'm going to pick Andy. I think Andy's team's going to continue to thrive. I mean, his running backs are really good. Jordan Mason's had a big, strong start to his season. Josh Jacobs has been playing pretty good. And then obviously the wide receivers have been playing well too. So Denver, great matchup for Chris Godwin. CeeDee Lamb, going to do CeeDee Lamb things. Trey McBride has a great matchup against Detroit as well. So that is going to be really cool to see. Chris Godwin's playing Denver. Sorry, I got that mixed up. And then, yeah, Rachaad White's probably the smart flex play after seeing how Jerome Ford played this last upcoming week. So I do like the Rachaad White flex play here. There's really no one else I would put on your bench over him. So, and then looking at Chance's team, Breece Hall and David Montgomery should have some pretty – I think Breece Hall is going to continue to carry this team. He should have a pretty decent game tonight against New England. So, and then David Montgomery going up against Arizona. I think that's a great matchup for him. I think he'll play pretty well. Brock Purdy against the Rams. After seeing Kyler Murray light up the Rams last week, I would expect Brock Purdy to do the same. Pittman against Chicago. We'll see how that goes. That game's going to be very interesting to watch. I don't know who's going to win that game. Ayuk should have a bounce-back week as well. I think against this Rams defense, he's going to thrive, so that should be huge for you. Zay Flowers against Dallas. A little bit of a tough matchup, but I think Zay Flowers obviously is going to get a bulk of the targets in this offense for this upcoming week. But give me Andy this week. Andy's team just looks stronger to me overall. And right now they've started the year off very well. I think they're going to stay hot. So next up we got Burt versus Jack. Looking at this matchup, Jane Daniels versus Baker. Jane Daniels, I think, is going to have kind of a hard time getting the offense going against a pretty tough Chicago defense. So we'll kind of see how that goes. And then you got Baker Mayfield going up against Denver. This game could be a shootout. Or not a shootout, sorry. This game could be very low scoring. Denver's defense is pretty decent this year. But I do think Baker Mayfield's going to continue slinging that pigskin, dude. He's playing very well to start this season. I would definitely expect him to have another pretty decent game coming up. Looking at the running backs, obviously I kind of want to lean towards Burt's running backs. But, I mean, when you had Kamara put up 40-something points last week, I mean, he beat Jahmyr Gibbs and Derek White last week in points total just off that by like 15. So, I mean, if Kamara has another huge week against a Philly defense that is not looking that great to start the year, I mean, Kamara could have another huge week. So we'll keep an eye on that. Really just Zeke's kind of bringing down the running back room because obviously Dallas, we don't know what the hell's going on with their running back situation. They got 3 running backs by committee right now. We don't know who the top guy is going to be going forward. So definitely want to lean towards Burt's running backs this week. Wide receiver-wise, pretty even. Mike Evans against Malik Neighbors, George Pickens against Tank Dell. Malik Neighbors is going to have a little bit of a tougher matchup against Cleveland this week, so that could definitely hurt his usage. And then Mike Evans also has a little bit of a tougher matchup with Denver this week too. So you got those two tough matchups, and then you got two matchups that are a little bit easier with George Pickens and Tank Dell. George Pickens, I think, will definitely have a big week this week. Tank Dell, maybe. He's kind of a boomer bust guy right now for me. Obviously, you have the advantage at tight end, Jack, with Kittle. Kittle should have a bigger role in this offense with no Debo and no McCaffrey, so he should have a really good week as well. And then really right now, it's just the injuries. The Cooper Kupp injury really hurt Bert's team, and then obviously McCaffrey injury really hurt Jack's team. So looking at this matchup, I kind of want to lean towards – oh, man, this is kind of a tough one. A really tough one. I don't know. I think I might lean a little bit towards Bert's team this week just because the flex spot. I know Hunter Henry had a big week, but I think I like Shaheed a lot more in this matchup against Philly. And then Hunter Henry against the Jets, that's a pretty tough defense to go up against. So I think I'm going to lean towards Bert this week. Next up, we got Tuck and Connie. This should be a pretty good matchup. Battle of the Connors. Obviously, Tuck's going to have to fix his lineup up with no Pacheco. He's going to have to go pick up he's not, sorry. He's going to have to put Najee up at that running back position and then figure out what he's going to do with his flex spot. So that's a big loss for Tuck's team. And then looking at Connie's team, Connie, no health concerns other than maybe Keenan Allen if he's ready to go. But if not, you can flex Jalen Warren. You could flex Darnell Mooney again if you really wanted to. So we'll kind of see what happens with that. But Mahomes going up against Atlanta. Mahomes should have a pretty big week. He's going to be very pass heavy this week with no Pacheco, so I would expect a pretty big week for I would expect a really big week for Mahomes. Kyron Williams going up against San Francisco, a little bit of a tough matchup for him. And then Devontae Smith against New Orleans. Xavier Worthy against Atlanta as well. Kyle Pitts going up against KC, and then Najee Harris going up against the Chargers. Looking at the QB matchups, I think Mahomes will be playing better than Dak this week. Kyron Williams against Saquon. Give me Saquon for that matchup. I think Saquon's got a really good matchup right there with New Orleans. Stevenson. We're going to say Najee Harris because Najee Harris will be moved up there. I would probably take Stevenson. And then Chris Olave, Devontae. I'd probably take this one's tough. I'd probably take Devontae Smith over Olave just because of no A.J. Brown. Stephon Diggs or Xavier Worthy. This one's tough. I really don't know about this one because both of these guys, I'd probably take Diggs over Worthy. And then Brock Bowers, obviously, over Pitts with how he started the season. And they're taking on Carolina. So I would expect Bowers to have a huge week. And then, yeah, I think I'm going to lean towards Connie's team this week. I do like the way Connie's team's looking. I think that he'll get the dub. Next up, we got Dylan and Bryce. This should be a pretty good matchup. I do like the way this is trending. We'll see if Evan Ingram's healthy. We'll see if Taysom Hill's healthy. Got a couple questionables with Joe Mixon and Aaron Jones as well. I don't really know if Joe Mixon is going to play this week. We'll see what happens with that. Obviously, with the QB play, I got to lean towards Kyler Murray over Anthony Richardson after the week that Anthony Richardson had. So give me Kyler Murray. Give me A-Chain over Mixon. Give me Aaron Jones over this is kind of tough. Aaron Jones or Zach Moss. I don't know. That's a tough one. Kind of even right there. Amon-Ra or DJ Moore. Give me Amon-Ra all day. Devontae Adams or Calvin Ridley. This is actually a little bit closer than you would think. I think Devontae, just with the matchup, he's going up against Carolina. And then tight ends, I really don't know. Tight end, I don't even want to talk about. The flex spot is what I do want to talk about, though. Jameson Williams, Jackson Smith. This is going to be a pretty Interesting matchup to see which one scores more. Ijibba going up against Miami, and then Jamison Williams going up against Arizona. I'd probably lean towards Jackson Smith because of the amount of volume he's getting in this offense after that second week. So I think he might be becoming the number 2 option on this offense. So I think give me Ijibba over Williams. Looking at this, I think I might lean towards Bryce's team this week. Bryce's team to me looks overall stronger, in my opinion, with some of the guys. So give me Bryce on that matchup this week. Next up, Carson and Seth. This will be a pretty good matchup, the battle of the beat-up teams. I would say that Lamar Jackson will probably play pretty well. I think they don't want to go 0-3, and I think Lamar's going to absolutely try to murder Dallas's defense this week. Sorry, Carson. It's probably going to happen. Give me Lamar for sure. Kenneth Walker, if he plays, I'd still take Jonathan Taylor over him against Chicago's defense. Kenneth Walker, I think, I don't know. We'll see. He's not practicing right now, so that's a concern. Brian Robinson over Chuba for sure. Brian Robinson's had a pretty decent start to the year. I think he is running back 12. So, yeah, pretty decent season to start for Brian Robinson. Tyreek Hill or T. Higgins. Over talent standpoint, give me Tyreek for sure. T. Higgins. But, I mean, obviously you got to put Skylar Thompson being QB in there to kind of hurt Tyreek Hill's value now. But, I mean, I think he's definitely going to be still getting a lot of targets. T. Higgins coming back, I think he'll be a little slow. So I'd probably take Tyreek Hill. I want to take Amari Cooper over DeMarcus Robinson because I think, obviously, Amari Cooper has the better matchup against the Giants. But their offenses look terrible. And DeMarcus Robinson might be number 1 with the Rams. So I think I'm going to stick with Cooper. I think Cooper will have his best week coming up. And then this flex spot's very interesting with Juwan Jennings looking like he's probably going to be like the number 3 option on this offense going into this week. And then Austin Eckler just kind of sharing the running back room with Brian Robinson. I'd probably lean towards Eckler just to be safe, but Juwan Jennings could have a big week. So, looking at these teams, honestly, I think I'm going to lean towards – I forgot to talk about the tight ends, Kincaid and Kelsey. This is going to be a good one to see too because both of these guys have had pretty slow starts to the season as they were projected to be top 5 tight ends this year. I would expect Kincaid to have a bigger week going against Jacksonville compared to Kelsey against Atlanta. So I think I'm going to go with Carson's team this week. Give me Carson's team. I think the wide receivers will perform better this week for him. And I think Kincaid will play well. So give me Carson. And then we got Jace and Kyle, Commissioner, going up against Jace. This is like actually insane how dead even this matchup is. They are both projected 107.6, so this is as even as it gets. Josh Allen against Geno. Obviously, I'm going to take Josh Allen over Geno all day. Against Jacksonville, too, I think Josh Allen will thrive. Definitely going to take ETN over Javonte Williams. And then James Conner, J.K. Dobbins. This is very, very hard to decide. J.K. Dobbins is hot right now. But over the matchup perspective, J.K. Dobbins is taking on the Pittsburgh defense. And that I don't think J.K. Dobbins is going to have a 100-yard game against Pittsburgh, especially with the front line they have. So give me James Conner this week over J.K. Garrett Wilson or Justin Jefferson. If Justin Jefferson's healthy, I'm taking Jefferson all day, especially against this Houston defense. New England's defense is stronger to me, so I would definitely lean towards Jefferson. Waddle or Harrison Jr. Give me Harrison Jr. all day with obviously the 2 injury. Jake Ferguson or Mark Andrews. I probably want to lean towards Mark Andrews a little bit more because Ferguson, he might be a little limited coming back, so we'll see what happens with that. And then this flex spot's very interesting with Terry McLaurin against Amir White, 2 guys who have not had great years to start off. I'd probably lean towards Terry McLaurin a little bit more. Give me looking at this matchup, man. Whew. Jace is probably going to have big weeks for Josh Allen, Marvin Harrison Jr. But I think I want to lean towards Jace's team just because they're more healthy. Justin Jefferson, I don't know how healthy this guy's going to be. And if he'd say he doesn't play, that's a huge loss for Kyle's team. So give me Jace's team. And then last matchup of the week is going to be me and Easton. This is going to be a pretty even matchup as well. I'm very excited to see how this goes. On paper right now, Easton's team looks better than mine, so definitely would give the edge to Easton this week for sure. But I am expecting hopefully bigger play from Jamar Chase, from DeAndre Swift, from Sam Laporta this week. So hopefully I get that production that I've been expecting out of them this year, and I should hopefully come out with the W. But not happy to be going up against a Charbonnet that is most likely going to be leading the Seahawks backfield again this week, and going up against Bijan, who's been having a pretty decent year to start. Jalen Hurts is definitely the better QB over Jared Goff for me. And then looking at the wide receivers, I mean, Nico's been having a monster year, so I'd expect him to continue to produce, and Rashee Rice has had a great start to the year too. So he's definitely got the advantages on all those guys over me. I think I have a little bit. I mean, Goddard and Laporta are kind of even with how they've been playing, but I think I have the edge with Laporta. I think Laporta will have a decent bounce back week. And then DK Metcalf, after the big game he had last week against Tony Pollard on the flex spot, if Tajee Spears doesn't play, I think I'd pick Tony Pollard. But if Tajee Spears plays, I'd probably take DK. So this is going to be an interesting matchup, man. I'm very interested to see how this goes. So hopefully I'll get the dub this week. But good luck to you, Easton. All right, we are now 41 minutes on this video. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Very excited to see how this SGS league goes this week. Definitely the injuries have been plaguing all of our teams, and it's very unfortunate. But hopefully that all of our guys will get healthy eventually, and we'll all have full teams again. But this is just what comes with fantasy football injuries, man. It fucking sucks. But I will say, very looking forward to these matchups this week. Y'all enjoy the rest of your week, and I will be back tomorrow with another video. So I will see y'all next time.